Broadcast is live, it says.
There we go. Well, here we are, everybody. My name is Tim. This is not another Real Ideal Gear review. This is a live stream with Dave from Just the Watch.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here.
Here we go. Dave and I have kind of been in communication here for about a month or probably 2 months. And
yeah, it's, we've kind of been working on this for a while, I think.
Yeah, back and forth and just trying to figure out, like, what would we do as a collaborative live stream. And so we kind of came up with an idea that would be around watch of ages is kind of the catchphrase, but really what it is just kind of watches that we've had over the years, watches, over the decades, that kind of thing. So, so that's kind of the theme of this. And we're going to go through just kind of the watches that we've had to start with. I'll start off with the first part of this, which is my youngest recollection, and then I'll pass the baton over to Dave. But my youngest recollection of watches that I can remember, it was always the digital watch. And let me pull up. It was something like that. Is that showing up on your screen, Dave?
Yeah, it's showing up for me.
Yeah. And I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was a Timex, because I remember, now I was a kid in the 70s. I was born in 70. So I was a kid in the late 70s, early 80s, interested in watches. And this, I think, was probably the style that I had in my mind at that time. Is probably one that I had. Really simple stopwatch, date, time. What else was there? Alarm. I think it was alarm. And then probably the weakest light ever made in the 70s, when it came down to it. But I just remember thinking, like, that stopwatch, I don't know about you, Dave, but the first digital watch that I had, and this was probably the first watch that I had.
Yeah.
I loved the stopwatch. Start and stop. How fast can you start and stop?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, 70s, that was when, digital watches were getting pretty new then. When they come out in the 60s, right, is when they were invented.
Yeah.
I think.
So,
yeah, but then.
I had no interest in a mechanical analog watch at all.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. This was the watch that had my interest, was digital all the way.
Yeah. So I grew up, so I was born in 81. So I was, a kid in the 80s, and then 90s when I started even thinking about stuff like that. So by then, digital watches were all there was for me. I mean, when I was a kid, same thing. I was just completely, digital watches are easier to read. They're cool. And the stopwatch function was cool. But by the time I started wearing watches, they had a little bit better lights. So let me pull up mine. I don't know exactly. I'm in the same boat. I can't remember exactly what watch it was, but it was something like, let me get this up here.
So I remove mine?
Yeah. What'll happen here? Yeah, go and do that.
I'll take that one down just to see if it makes it easier.
No. How am I going to find it here? There we go. So if you click on mine down below under us.
There it is. Oh, I got it.
Yeah. So I think it was a Timex too. I'm not 100% sure. I just remember I went through a number of digital watches as a kid. I think most of them were probably toys. They're probably like those Mickey Mouse watches or whatever, with the cartoon characters on it. But at some point I do remember I'm pretty sure it was a Timex, because I remember the Indiglo. And just being blown away at that backlight and how the whole back of the screen would light up with that electroluminescence thing. I think especially when I was, a kid in elementary school, it's just easier to read a digital watch than an analog watch. So I didn't have any interest in wasting my time with that. And digital watches, you have the stopwatch, you have all those extra features. So they just seem like way cooler. I think I probably went through a bunch of different digital watches, probably most of them more toys than actual watches when I was younger. But that was, I think, definitely the digital watch phase that I went in. And it was interesting. I kind of grew out of that. And, later I think I sort of thought digital watches were just for kids for a while too. And now I'm making full swing back into having way too many Casios lying around my house.
Now because that watch that you have up there, that to me, I'm like 10 years older than you, but that looked like something more, mid to late 80s probably, because it's
probably
to like the cartoons, like TV shows. They had the themed watches, all that stuff, and then you get the colors, and Swatch was big when I was in junior high and high school.
Yeah,
you remember those?
Yeah. So that's, yeah, I think that's more where I was when I
Okay.
was a kid.
Nice.
But yeah, and then again, yeah, this one's got that's got the Indiglo on it too, which was, yeah, so better backlights coming in. But yeah, like I think the earliest I can remember, digital watches were just completely normal. That was just like ubiquitous. It was just that's what a watch was a digital watch.
Do you remember in school where, okay, first of all, did you have to learn? Do you remember learning the hands on a clock and the time?
Yeah, yeah,
Did you remember
yeah.
the
First grade,
controversy
kindergarten.
around digital clocks and how like kids aren't going to learn how to read a clock?
No, so they were all, by the time I got there, that was already totally normal for digital watches to be there. And so we had in the school classrooms, they had those old style analog clocks or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'd have to learn how to use that, read that. Yeah, no, but I went to a school in first and second grade. And after that, I started homeschooling. So after that, it was all just at my house and whatever we had there. But
yeah. I just remember like the conversation around that and calculators, handheld calculators. Kids are going to forget how to do their math.
Yeah, right.
If they have a calculator in their hand nowadays, now think about that. But it was the digital watch was really a flashpoint for when I was in late elementary, early junior high, and people were just up in arms. It's kind of like cursive writing right now. Like nobody knows how to write cursive.
Right. Yeah.
They're all typing on computers, that kind of thing. So, but all right. Okay. So moving on to the next one.
Okay.
I can show you something. Now, this is where I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Look at that guy. Oh, so you can actually, you guys see, was that calculator watch? It looks like
that's the calculator. So this is junior high. All right.
Okay.
So this is me and my, I think this is Chip. We had two Brittany's, and I can't remember what Jack looked like, but I think this is the first one we had. Brittany. So, but yeah, that is a Casio data bank.
Oh, cool.
Mid 80s. That is mid 80s, baby.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
and what did you store on it? So you could store like phone numbers and things?
Yeah, it was funny because I would store phone numbers on there, but during that era, like, and this is probably similar to what you had too for a while, you memorized everybody's phone number.
Yeah.
So putting it on the data bank was kind of like the people that you had just met, and it was a way of like taking notes. Like, I won't forget this girl's number now because it took me 10 minutes to type all this into this watch. But I wore this watch, but I didn't really like how long it was on the wrist, like across your wrist. It seemed really, really long, and I don't know. And the band, I remember it pulling the hair on my arms.
Yeah. Oh, so that's not a new feature for Casio watches. That's kind of, it's always been there.
Yeah. And then the weak light, it was, I don't know. It just seemed kind of clunky. It was like all that stuff on my wrist, and I wasn't totally used to it because, I don't know. It just seemed like too much fiddling around to get to the thing that I want to do. The calculator part of it was awesome. And the fact that the buttons weren't raised like the original version of it. So they had like an original version that had the buttons that came up that I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, this one was much more sleek and much more I don't know, hip. But that was short-lived. I didn't hang on to that watch for very long. I think I zoomed through this phase into the next one. But what about you? Like junior high, early high school, you kind of get that?
So for me, like I always thought the calculator watches were cool, but I never got one. For me, junior high school, I remember, and I again had trouble finding the exact watch, but I definitely remember for Christmas one year, my cousin got me a Fossil watch.
Oh yeah.
It was kind of like this. It was kind of it was on a metal bracelet. I don't think it was a dive style watch. I don't think it had a bezel like this, but the blue dial metal bracelet, late 90s, early 2000s Fossil watch. And for me, I thought like I had heard of Fossil, and I thought this was like the nicest watch I'd ever seen. For me, that was like a pretty pricey brand, I thought. So I just loved it. I wore that one all the time. And then one day I banged it up against a rock wall and scratched the crystal really good. And I was really bummed about that. So I obviously had a mineral crystal and not a sapphire one.
Right.
But yeah, so that was, I think when I was getting to the point where I sort of outgrew the digital watches, and I thought, oh, those are, more for kids. And now, I want something more sophisticated or whatever.
Okay.
But I remember wearing that for a while, and that was, really, really one of my favorite ones. Around that time too. So like, like I when I was growing up a kid, I wasn't even aware of the existence of mechanical or automatic watches.
Yeah.
Like the only thing the only clue that I ever had that they existed was, I loved Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure as a kid movie, and there's one plot point in there where the main character forgets to wind his watch.
Yeah.
And I always wonder what are they talking about? You don't wind watches; they just have batteries in them and they just work. And I couldn't fathom what they were talking about. But at some point, my dad got an automatic watch. And I remember looking at it and just being amazed at, like, I was like trying to figure out how it works. It didn't have a battery or anything. And it had a, display case back so you could see the rotor moving around. And when I finally figured out what it was, it kind of, a lot of things clicked. I was just like totally blown away. I was like, oh, this is like the coolest thing ever. But it was almost like I was discovering automatic or mechanical watches. I didn't even have a clue of what they were, that they existed at the time.
Yeah, I was so wrapped up in quartz that I thought mechanical watches were antiques. Like, it just didn't seem like that was what you should buy.
Yeah.
It's just like, you got a mechanical watch, you got to wind it and all that stuff. And it's not as accurate. And I didn't really have a mind for accuracy either. It was just like ease of use.
Yeah.
And knowing that you had quartz movements and you had digital quartz watches, it was like, why would you go mechanical?
Yeah.
I mean, that was my mindset for a long, long time. Matter of fact, that was my mindset for decades.
It's kind of interesting how that goes. Like, so I think for my dad, like seeing him now, so he got an Apple Watch not too long ago. Yeah. And I think he's kind of seen all the different generations of watches, and this is now the pinnacle of technology. So it's like the coolest thing ever. And here I am. I'm like, no, I'd rather get an nice automatic watch on my wrist and wear that instead. And so it's interesting what you grow up with. So like, I never had any. I didn't ever go through that period of where, automatic mechanical watches are these antiquated things that are obsolete now. Yeah. For me, it was like discovering this cool thing from the past, and it's like just it's amazing, intricate mechanisms and gears. So I only had positive emotions towards it. Whereas, I think like my dad and other generations, when you go through that progression, you kind of look back like, this one's old and done. Now we're moving on to the new things. So it's interesting, I think, how people experience that.
So this is a question I had for later, but you brought this up. Perfect timing for this. Great segue, Dave. And that is the family or close network influence on wearing watches. Like, who do you remember earliest, anyway, wearing watches? And was that something it was just, I'm going to wear a watch because my dad's wearing a watch, or my brother or sisters are wearing a watch, or like, what was that influence? Was it normal? Like, it sounds like it was people wearing watches. Like, where was that kind of watch influence coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I think. So I was the oldest in my family, so I would have been the first one to get a watch and wear it. I mean, I remember my dad having watches from time to time. When I was younger, he was in real estate. So actually for him, it was more, he was more into pens than watches. Oh. You have to sign the contract. So he had some really nice pens and really kind of treasured those. And then, but every once in a while he'd get a watch in too. But it was more just kind of a normal thing. I just always liked, cool little gadgets and things. And so watches kind of fit into that for me. Again, getting one from my cousin was really cool. Really appreciated that. But not like a lot of, I think when I started collecting watches, that kind of came out of nowhere for my family. They were sort of surprised. Because I think everybody in my family kind of went through that phase of, okay, now watches are obsolete and we'll just use our cell phones to tell what time it is, right? It's like everybody stopped wearing watches. And then when it did come back, it was the smart watches. I don't think I had a lot of family influence, not as strong as far as collecting watches. I think I was more pioneering that in my family.
Pioneer. Nice.
Yeah. I've been trying to pull more of them into it with varying degrees of luck. My younger brother is a year younger than me. He's really likes G-Shocks and Casio digital watches. So I've been feeding him a lot of the ones. I'm done with the review. I might pass it on to him. Yeah, but I'm always looking. I have 7 younger brothers and sisters, so I'm always looking to try and get some of them into it.
Yeah. So my dad, I always remember him wearing a watch, and it was interesting because the watch I remember him wearing was one that had an elastic band.
Okay.
So there was no clasp,
like a metal band, but elastic.
Band. Yeah, it was elastic, and it would just go over his wrist, and he'd just slide it on his wrist, and then I was like, I kind of thought that was cool. At the same time, he was wearing a dress watch because he was an administrator in the St. Paul school system.
Okay.
And so he got, a suit and tie every day, and he would do that. So that was kind of cool to see that. My brother always wore a watch. He's in finance. And so high school and in college, when he was in high school, I think he wore a watch. I know he did in college because he was going down that path of being the next Bill Gates. So that I don't know.
Did he make it?
Yeah, he's doing fine. He's doing just fine.
We got a comment. Pale Horse, thanks for stopping by. How you doing?
Hey, there we go. So yeah, for my family, I've always seen my mom wore a watch. Like everybody wore a watch that I can remember. My 2 younger sisters, they were younger than I was, so I didn't expect them to, to wear a watch right away because I was older than them. Like I was always ahead of them in school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But even friends, I'm not even sure if my close friends wore watches. I don't think they did. I think I was kind of the watch nerd for that reason. But so I'm going to go on to the high school side.
Okay.
And so there's me in high school. I think that's actually late high school, maybe early college. And I got to show you that. So I did not have a Tag Heuer. Okay.
I mean, that's pretty nice for a high school student.
Well, right. Exactly. I did not have this watch, but I had this style of watch. So if you look back, I'm going to show you what those other watches are here in a second. But if you look at the style of watch, it was a dive watch, but it was quartz. And so that's me on the right, in the Boundary Waters canoe area in northern Minnesota. And the reason I had that was because of that. Like I am an outdoorsman. I love the outdoors. I work in the outdoors right now. So that was a watch that when it came down to it, I needed something that had water resistance and it was easy to read. And the digital watch, one of the things I didn't like about digital watches was the contrast wasn't as rich as it is now. Like back then it was a little bit, softer. The lights weren't as good.
You had to get just the right angle.
Yeah. So there was kind of like, I don't know what it was. So that was not, so I kind of put the digital watches aside, but I stuck to the quartz, this analog quartz watch. I had that watch for a long time, and I probably had that up until I had the incident, and I'll tell you about the incident here in the next watch. But the incident was what changed me from a watch like this into like, don't ever do that again. But so that's kind of my transition from actually digital watches for a long time. Yeah, and I wore an analog watch for probably I think this was most of my high school into early college years. Yeah, because it looked cool too. And
that is a cool looking. But you don't remember which brand it was, or?
No, I have no idea.
No, honestly, just something along those lines.
This is the watch I wanted.
Oh yeah,
I wanted to buy something. The watch that I wanted when I was in high school and junior high was the Arnie, because you see, there's the analog. I was like going towards analog, but it had the stopwatch. It had the the alarm.
You get the best of both worlds.
And of course you look cool when you put that on. So
that
was the watch I was coveting. I never got it, and I'm not sure I'd ever get it now. I just don't like the looks of it anymore. I think it was kind of an Arnold influence more than it was the watch.
Yeah. Well, if you start pumping the iron a little bit, you might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, might. Yeah. So that was kind of so I transitioned into analog right around high school, early college, yeah. Well, how about you for like getting out of, I don't know if you were in high school yet or not, but in your watch list here, but.
Yeah. So I was really struggling to figure out what I was wearing in high school. I think around that time, I kind of went into that sort of desert period where I wasn't really wearing much. I don't really remember. I think I went through a time where, I wasn't really wearing a watch much. And then, eventually I got a cell phone, I think right around the time I graduated college, but I don't think through high school and college I was really wearing much. I kind of stopped. and then it was later that I kind of really dived back into it. So yeah, during that period, I wasn't really wearing a watch, I don't think.
So I'm talking with my wife about this.
Mm-hmm.
This episode, what we're doing here, and she quietly goes over to her nightstand and she pulls out. Where is it? She pulls this out.
Okay.
These are 3 watches.
Wow.
The Barbie watch. She still has this.
Yeah.
Quartz.
Looks like a Cinderella watch.
Yeah, Cinderella. Never mind. Let me get my glasses up where I can actually use them. Anne Klein, and that one. Look at the water resistance on that watch. 100.
Yeah, 100 on that. Wow.
100. Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected that.
No. And then when she was in high school, she was her senior year. She ran cross country, so she had an Indiglo, and she pulls this out. And
I mean, that's a great 3-watch collection right there, right? I mean, you got all your bases covered.
You do. You got your dress watch, you got your goof around watch, and you got your keeping track of serious stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's cool. I mean, I assume you can figure out the times in her life when she got that pretty easily by.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing the Cinderella watch was younger.
Yeah. Yep. It was.
You never know these days.
And then she was gifted that dressy watch, and that's a quartz. And actually, I ordered a battery for that. She wants to get that up and running again, so we'll get that up and running again. And she's not really interested in the Iron Man anymore. No. It's seen some better days. It's well worn. But another
looks like a classic there, though. That's cool that she kept them.
Yeah, like how you've had kind of gifted some watches or influenced your siblings. Yeah. In the last 4 months, I would say, my wife has been like, there's something lit up inside her as far as watches go. And so she's wearing a bunch of my watches. You know, she'll wear the 36 millimeter, 38, 39 millimeter watches.
Yeah.
Especially if they have straps, because our wrists are vastly different sizes. But so it's just fun to see that. And when she pulled this out, it's like, oh, you were kind of a little watch gal, you know, in the closet. You know, she had more watches than any girl I ever knew grew up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the fact that she kept them like that tells you something.
Yeah. So interesting though is just like, again, that you can kind of see the age, or the influence of the decade.
Yeah, it really kind of tells her life story in a way. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's always funny. You can tell so much, I think, about a person by looking at the watches that they have or have had. Right. Sort of like a timeline if they keep them. Yeah.
And she's a runner to this day. Her knees are kind of bothering her, but she likes to run. And so she likes to have something she can time with. Yeah. And one of the watches that I did for nurses, EMTs, and first responders, she apprehended that one. And it's just black and white, super easy to read with a full lume dial. And she wears it all the time. It's a quartz, you know, because I think one of the things that I found just in the very limited conversations with women is quartz. They don't really mess around with watches to the same extent that guys may, as far as I know. So quartz seemed to be, in my limited sampling here, a little bit more popular among women. But yeah, so there's that one. So for me, college, let's go past this.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, if there's anybody, it looks like we got about 8 or 9 people watching. What watches did you guys have when you were kids? And you know, tell us about some of the stuff that really sticks in your memory. Kids, high school, you know, we're kind of reminiscing about the things that we used to wear. What was your guys' watch journey like? Let's get a couple of comments in here too.
Yeah, and the big one I remember was Swatch. All the different varieties of the Swatch watch, the colors, it was like, I don't know. It's kind of like that Omega release with the solar system. You know, they just had a whole bunch of different colors, different style. That has a real Swatch history to it. That just, you go back to the 80s and 90s. It's like, oh, that rings a bell in my mind as far as just what I saw back then. So anyway, this is the next one. So this was college, and I was in East Central Minnesota hunting grouse, rough grouse. And I'm walking around on my grandmother's property. I'm very familiar with it, knew exactly where things were. I also knew, and East Central Minnesota is a very swampy area. So a lot of swamp grass, a lot of swamps, that kind of stuff. Not the most enjoyable walks sometimes. So anyway, I'm out in the swamp, and I get turned around. It's a cloudy day, and I have no idea which way is north. I have no way of knowing where to go. And there was actually, I've only had this happen twice where I was like, this is not good, and I don't know what to do right now. And so that was the situation. I did find my way out, but I wandered. It was funny. I wandered through this swamp for probably a half an hour. Finally recognized it. And then I was like, I think that's what it is. And I ended up walking out into this field, not where I thought I was, but in a different place. But I was in the field I wanted to be in. So anyway, it scared the living daylights out of me. But so I went to a Casio triple.
Couldn't just pull out your phone and check on your GPS. Huh?
Right. There's no phone, and then it's like, well, what about the moss on the tree? There were no trees. You're in
no.
Grass, So there's all of these things I knew how to do, but the circumstances did not allow for me to exercise.
Yeah. So this was the highest technology they had then. This is the tool for the job.
Yeah. This was the one that I had in the early 2000s. I had two versions older than this that had much bigger. It was just clunkier, but it had a compass. The biggest thing on there was the compass. That's what I wanted. And that was the game changer. I wore this watch. I still have a triple sensor. I have had this watch since the mid or late 90s.
Wow.
Well, it's been over 20 years. I've had one of these, and this was the only watch I had up until last summer. So all the watches I have, there's a little confession, Dave. I'm going to confess to you. All the watches I have are a result of you and another guy on YouTube, because I was researching my next triple sensor. Okay. I was researching it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool one. All right. I'm going to try that one. And you know what I ended up getting? Yeah.
Oh, hey, I've still got mine in my box back there.
Yeah. So anyway, I went down.
I mean, it's an interesting lineage, because I went through the same thing. I don't know, probably a couple years before you did, and I found Urban Gentry, and started watching his videos, and he got me. And then I actually bought that. I bought my Nighthawk because I saw Jory over at Time Teller did a review of it. And I thought that's the watch. I got to have it. So yeah, I got that one. So yeah, it's interesting how this YouTube thing. So who knows in a couple years who's going to be watching your videos, and we'll get into watches because of it. It'll just keep coming around.
At the beginning, but it's an awesome ride.
It's been fun, right? Yeah.
It has been fun, and it's been so interesting. And that's part of like my wife and I have like looked at these watches that we have, and I say we because she does legitimately wear as many as she can that fit her and all that. But it's just something that we've really started to enjoy. But there is a limit. I think I've kind of reached my ceiling.
Right. Yeah. You kind of go through that. It's like, okay, wait, maybe I need to rein this in a little bit. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm fluffing some off now. So.
Looks like Eric went through a similar trajectory as digital Casio in middle school, and then a Caravelle quartz in high school.
Yeah.
A lot of years with just a quartz pulsar. So yeah, that's a good few watches.
And I think all the viewers out there, like, did you have a go-to watch? Like, was there the one that was the backbone, or maybe it was two or three, but was there a watch that was a backbone? What about you, Dave? Did you have like a watch that was?
I mean, for me, before I started like the watch channel and trying to collect, like the idea of having more than one watch was not even in the picture. Whatever watch I had was the watch that I wore. I think until probably about 5 years ago when I started watching YouTube, watching watch reviews on YouTube, and like, oh, you know what would be really cool is if I had a small collection of watches, so I could, pick what I wanted to wear that day. And then like if I was going to the beach, I'd have a waterproof watch, or if I was going to go to a wedding, I would have a dress watch, and then I'd be kind of covered for these different situations. And then, kind of just snowballed from there. But yeah, before that, it was just, I'd have one watch for everything. If it was a digital watch, didn't matter what I was wearing. If I had to wear a suit, I'd wear the digital watch. It didn't even occur to me to have more than one watch and favor one over another.
All right, Dave, we're at Y2K now.
Okay.
2000. And just to kind of set the context, I remember buying oil lamps for Y2K.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I was there looking at, is everything going to crash? Is the electrical system going to go down? I went out and bought one oil lamp, and I thought I was good.
Yeah. That'll do it. Right.
So
Yeah, no, I remember being really nervous on New Year's Eve that night. I don't know, I had a friend who his family, they moved to, I think, New Zealand because of Y2K. They thought they were pretty concerned about societal collapse.
yeah,
And then they came back afterwards and it's like, oh, it's all good.
yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, I was really nervous. Yeah, I used to you listen to a lot of the theories about what was going to happen.
Well, you're a
But I
computer
think
guy. Like
we
that whole computer thing, that was the driving force
yeah.
behind it, right?
No, yeah, I was working in the computer industry then, and it was, I mean, it was a big deal. Like I was working in an office, so we had to update all the software and everything, and prepare for it, and do a lot of, and yeah, I think from the work side of things, it was like, oh, are all the computers going to turn on tomorrow morning? But it seemed like they got all the patches and everything ready, and it wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would, like, up until Y2K, it was a real busy time to be in the computer industry because everybody was updating the software and hardware and everything. I think I was still in high school then, but yeah, it was my high school job. I was working in
All
office.
right. So what's your next watch?
Yeah. So for me, again, I think around the 2000s, that's about when I got a cell phone. So my next watch was a cell phone. I guess it was actually, I went through like a Palm Pilot phase. Do you remember those?
I do.
Yeah. So that had time on it. So it was kind of like a pocket watch. And yeah, that had a lot of, so actually, yeah, it was, I had an off-brand. I had a handspring visor. I didn't have a Palm Pilot. But yeah, I had that going through college, and I would carry that around, and that had the time on it. And then I graduated from that to like a Nokia cell phone. So yeah, again, we're in that period where watches were kind of obsolete. Nobody was wearing them. Everybody just had the time on some device in their pocket. And yeah, I stopped. I didn't have anything then.
Yeah, I was slow on the uptake on the cell phone side of things. It was I've had a watch on, well, the triple sensor watch for decades. It was just like comforting. And the one that I had, I'll pull that one back up again because it's an interesting model because it's titanium. And it was also made thinner. So is
the case titanium too, or is it just the band?
Yeah, I think the case was titanium.
Wow,
it had
that's nice then.
Stuff on it.
Yeah, that's
the band
cool.
was titanium, so it was light. And then they had made it smaller, thinner, or taller, or shorter. I'm sorry, they made it shorter off the wrist, which is what that was my complaint with the other versions of it. It was just so tall, and so they figured out how to engineer things a little bit smaller and whatnot. But I wore this 24/7 for years. I had this watch for almost 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, that
on last year.
It's a testament to Casio right there. But that's cool. That's a full titanium. You don't see that too often from them now.
Yeah,
especially on the digital one.
The battery, never changed the battery on it. My youngest son has it to this day.
Is yours a solar like this one that you're showing, or no?
Yeah, it was a tough solar.
Okay.
And this is the exact one I had.
Yeah.
The only thing that broke on it were these little plastic spacers where the band bracelet meets the lugs.
Oh, okay.
Broke out, so the bracelet kind of moved,
rattles around
on the spring bar.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of a weird design.
Yeah, it was like, well, of course I'd worn it for 15 years, so it's like, yeah, it lasted long enough.
Yeah.
But I had that mountaineering. I've had that doing all kinds of stuff, and the crystal seemed to last. That's the other thing too. Like you mentioned, Casios, like they can get beat up pretty bad, but these have enough of a bezel to them where the crystal is kind of protected.
It's kind of recessed a little bit, gives a little bit of protection.
Yeah. So I kind of like you. I hit a phase where I found the watch I wanted and had for years. You had a cell phone or Palm Pilot.
Yeah.
But for me, I found the watch, and I had literally had it for decades up until last year. And last year,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, last year the floodgates opened.
Sorry about that.
My wife was like, another watch? It's like, yeah, cool, look at this one. But I'm a gadget guy, like you said. You get into gadgets, and it's like, I've got flashlights. Like, why do I need some?
Okay. Yeah, I saw some of your recent videos doing EDCs and stuff. That's cool.
Yeah. So I've got the stuff. I might as well talk about why I have it.
Yeah.
And the knives, I'm not into knives as much because they're in the pocket. Same thing with flashlights. They're not like out on your wrist kind of a thing.
Right.
So Yeah, I'm a gadget guy, and that's
Yeah.
where this comes from.
Yeah, I love flashlights. I think I always liked carrying a pocket knife in America, but in Japan you can't. So I kind of gave that one up.
Yeah.
We're
Really?
real strict on that kind of stuff here.
Yeah. Okay. So not even like those really small Swiss Army knives? You can't have
Technically, no. I mean, like there's the rules are kind of fuzzy, but
Okay.
if you have a really small, like, keychain one, you probably get away with it. But a lot of it, like, it's up to the police officers if they find
Right.
you with it, if they
Yeah.
decide to fine you or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything larger, you have to have a valid reason for carrying it. So like if they pull you over or if they catch you with it, you have to say, oh, well, I'm going camping right now or something. But if you just say, I might need to open a box later today, that's not good enough. You can get a ticket. There's some guy who got arrested, like tourists, I think like about 10 years ago. He went into the police station to ask for directions. And some guy asked him, hey, do you have a pocket knife on you? And he said, oh yeah, here it is right here. And then they arrested him. It was like, okay, so ever since I read this, like, okay, so I'm not gonna chance that. I'll just I have some in my house that I use when I need to open box and stuff, but I won't take them out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you're in a different country.
Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty
So you can't just say, well, I'm an American.
Yeah. No, wouldn't work. Yeah.
Right.
They probably arrest you faster that way.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll make the cuffs a little tighter for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So, all right. We talked a little about, the influence question was going to come up here, right? Y2K, 9/11, that whole thing. Going into now, the present day, getting away from your Palm Pilot, did you give up your Palm Pilot or do you still use it?
I gave it up when I got a cell phone. So I graduated from that to a cell phone, to a smartphone. Yeah. And then what got me back into watches was the gadget thing again. I got a Pebble smartwatch, and that was probably 8 years ago ish.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and put that one up. Yeah. So I got this guy. So yeah, again, it was a cool gadget. It synced with my phone. So I would get notifications. I could read text messages on my wrist. I could have the weather on my wrist. And I thought that was super cool. And so I started wearing that all the time.
Yeah.
And this was after we moved to Japan. So every once in a while, I would have to get up and preach a sermon. Not too often because I was still studying Japanese. But every once I have to get up in front of church and hear. I mean, it might be in Europe, but in California is usually pretty casual. But here in Japan, they're fairly formal. So I would have to wear a suit. And I remember thinking, this watch does not match wearing a suit. Right. And I tried to dress it up. I tried to get like a leather band. I tried to get like some little vinyl wraps you can put on to make it look like it's made out of it. It didn't work. It wasn't quite it. So that was kind of the catalyst. It was like, okay, well then I do need to get a dress watch then, because I loved the convenience of having the time on my wrist and being able to see that. And I didn't want to go back to not having it. I think coinciding with that, I started having kids. So this was, I think I had when I got this one, I had like a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I'm constantly holding kids. I can't, like, if I want to figure out what time it is, I can't try and fish into my pockets to pull my phone out and get that. The kid would probably knock the phone out of my hand. And I just remember that this is so much nicer being able to just go like this and know what time it was. And so it was like, from that, it was like, okay, I don't ever want to be without a watch now. So that was sort of the catalyst of getting back into it and really getting deeper into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, this is the watch that I wore when I was in education, when I was in administration as well. And this is the one that, actually it was that other one, the titanium one and this one. And, these two were just, I didn't really care what it looked like, I guess.
Well, but that one looks cool. I mean, that one definitely looks more, I don't know, I don't want to say stylish, but yeah, more mature. Yeah. Like I think you can get away with that one in more professional settings and no one would really bat an eye.
Yeah. And I think the analog part helps.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Part. But
yeah, it's kind of a military aviation style look to it.
So I guess I never really paid attention to it again until I started seeing the options that were out there. I was rather oblivious to the options for watches that were out there until my, dive into the YouTube world of watches. And then it was just like this mad rush of like, oh my goodness, there's all these different styles that are out there in different price ranges as well. So,
yeah.
But I guess the question I have now is like, so, because you bring this up, I think this is a great thing about having more than one watch. And my second oldest son, he's got more than one watch. Well, actually, all my boys, I think, have more than one watch now because I've given them another one. They have the Apple Watch, and then they have another one.
Yeah.
But that is, what do you like? What's the process of what you're wearing? You kind of started down that path of like,
right.
How do you know, if you do know, what watch you're going to wear for particular days or occasions, or like, what's the thought process of doing that?
Yeah. I mean, so for me nowadays, half the times it's whatever I'm reviewing. That's kind of the process. So I think I went through this brief period where I was just starting the YouTube channel and I was just starting a watch collection. And yeah, I could really sit down and choose, which watch do I want to wear today? But yeah, nowadays it's like I'm constantly have a watch that I'm making a video about. So it's like, I got to get some experience with this one so I can know what to say about it. So most of what I wear now is just whatever I have in for review. So for instance, I've got this one from Swiss Watch Company I've been wearing a lot lately.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's
the
Hyper G or what?
The Hyper G, yeah. So they sent this one in for review. So I've been getting ready to do a video on that. So I've been wearing that a lot. And yeah, that's the big deciding factor. And then, it does come into consideration, if there's like a special event or something. So I had to go to a funeral recently. So I was looking for something a little bit more subdued and more kind of a dress style. So for specific situations, I'll look for something like that. But on a daily basis, it's more often than not whatever I'm working on for the channel.
Okay. Yeah, I got Sunday going to church. It's dress watch, and I think in my mind it's like, well, this is how you wear the watches that you have. Like you're going to have to make a decision that you're going to need to wear these other watches. Otherwise, why do you have them? And so I rotate through, like every Sunday I'm wearing a different dress watch. And my wife gave me one for my birthday last year, the Bambino.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So whenever we go out on a date, I'll pull that one up. Whenever we go out on a date, I wear that one. This is, I think it's after all this. I put all the watches on there that.
Yeah, those are some fun watches in there. Those are some good ones.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. That's the sector stuff. Field. Here we go.
Yeah, your collection has grown quite a bit, it looks like.
Yeah. So I have these like things that pique my decision making. They help. So dress watches I wear for church, dates, that kind of thing. Because I'm not in public school and administration anymore, I don't have a lot of reasons to wear a dress watch. So most of my watches are the Field, Pilot, and some dive watches.
Yeah.
Because they just need to be more rugged and waterproof. And I do actually use the timing functions. I keep talking about this on my reviews it's like I time things. Like I go do a job and like I need something. And then you can memorize what time it was when you started, but it's a heck of a lot easier to have a bezel you can turn or chronograph you can start, something like that. So
yeah.
But
I'm right there with you. Like a timing function and a second time zone and a date. Like those are my three main complications. If a watch has all three of those, then much higher likelihood that'll make it on the wrist that day.
So what do you gravitate towards when it comes to your own watches? I know you get a lot of mailed in watches, but what do you gravitate towards? Like you may have more of those in your collection.
Yes, I think my favorite style of watch is Pilot watches. I think part of it is, I think this is a big part of watch collecting is a lot of the style of watch that you wear ties into what your interests are. And I think as a kid, I was just really into aviation. And I think my first profession that I wanted to be was an astronaut. Didn't think that was going to work out. So then I thought, I want to be a pilot. And then eventually I got really into computers and just kind of settled for that. But I think that whole dream of, the idea of flying and that whole side of things always appealed to me. And so I'm really attracted to the style of aviation watches. That was one of the big things why the Citizen Nighthawk I thought was so appealing. Just that idea of, this is a tool that professional pilots wear, and I can kind of jump into that mode, and it's useful for me too. It's like just a really cool thing. It's like, if it's good enough for them, it's definitely good enough for me sitting behind my computer or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I had I think since I was a kid, I've been fascinated with World War II, military, law enforcement. When I got out of high school, I wanted to be a cop. It's like, no, I want my summers off. I'm gonna go be a teacher.
There you go.
And that was my number one reason for being a teacher, was getting my summers off. I kid you not. Like, that's the reason.
Smart. No, it's a smart move.
It's not bad. Like, if you're honest, I was honest with myself anyway. And I ended up going back to law enforcement as a reserve deputy. So I got my fill of that. But I think it's always been the military, whether it's field, pilot, historical. Like, I love sector dials. Oh my goodness. Art Deco. I just found a company. I can't remember the name of the company. It's on the browser, which I'm not going to pull up now. I'm going to probably screw the computer up if I do. But Art Deco, that design period of the 20s, I don't know what it is about Art Deco. I think it's just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, no, that's a cool one.
And
I know Vario's done a few Art Deco watches that are pretty neat. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I gravitate towards is kind of that. I'm looking at the watches that I have, and it's like, oh man, it really is kind of that older school stuff. And then it's like tough. I need something that can take a beating,
right?
Because of what I put it through. And that's why I don't have as many dress watches. I get dressed up, and can do all that.
Yeah.
With people, but I prefer something I don't have to worry about. And so even quartz movements, I don't know. Like, do you have a lot of quartz movements on your watches?
I do have a fair amount, mostly digital. I don't have very many analog quartz watches.
Okay.
Got a couple, but I don't really wear them. I guess the Nighthawk would be like the only analog quartz I think that I wear.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got one Casio analog quartz, but mostly digital.
When it comes down to changing time or setting the time up, that's always an issue. And then of course when it comes to quartz, there's only a few months of the year where you go back and change from, the 30th to the 1st, like we did this past, so you got to do that. But when it's the 31st to the 1st, all these watches, they just keep on ticking.
Yeah. The digital ones are great for that.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the watches that repel? Like, you just like, I know.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think I can't do like the big flashy ones.
Yeah.
And I mean, no offense to people who like those. I know there's some people that are into that. It's just not my personality or style. I would be so self-conscious having like a big gold blingy watch on my wrist. So anything I think that's going to draw a lot of attention, I'm kind of self-conscious about. So even something like a two-tone, Rolex homage or something like that. It's just not quite my style. I like the way they look. I think they're kind of cool, but just like personality wise, I would feel really awkward wearing them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty open. Yeah, I don't mind like a big G-Shock or something is fine.
How about the really Bulova has kind of changed from, that classy into
they're modern with the they're kind of like that's I'm not a big fan of that one. Of Bulova's more modern interpretations. I definitely gravitate towards more classic looking watches. And sizes, I can go, I can go anywhere from 38 is probably the smallest I would typically go, but I'd go up to like a 44, 45. I do have a Bull of a Lunar Pilot I think it's 45, and I really like that one.
Yeah.
But other than the size, it's a very classic looking watch.
Yeah. Do you have a certain height that you stay away from?
Yeah, I don't like watches over like 13 millimeters.
Okay.
I mean, digital watches I think are different. I think if digital watch, I'm pretty much mostly wearing those with short sleeves when I'm going outdoors anyway, so I don't really mind that much. But definitely like a metal watch that's higher than like 13.5 millimeters, that starts to get too heavy and too obtrusive for me.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm with you on the flashing, rhinestone cowboy.
Yeah.
I just can't handle that. I've seen like that Rolex with the different gemstones around the bezel.
Yeah.
Gemstones. I'm like, that's kind of cool, but there's no way.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
No. Gold. I don't mind. Like, I think this is kind of a cultural shift too, because gold was kind of a thing in the 80s, maybe, but now it's like, it's kind of coming back a little bit. But I'm not a big gold color. I have one watch that's got some gold to it, but it's gilted, so that's fine. But yeah. Color goes.
Let me pull this up. So this is here's the watch that got me into watch collecting. This is gonna drive some people crazy. So this is the first watch. So I got the Pebble smartwatch, and then I needed a dress watch. So what do? You go online, and I found, I don't know, the article was on like some men's fashion site or something, talking about how great these MVMT watches were, and they're really high quality and cool designs, and young company that's really crushing it. I was like, oh, okay, sounds like good reviews. And they ship to Japan, so I ordered that one, and I really liked it. Like it's just a classic simple dress watch. I like the color scheme. It's kind of rose gold with a nice looking brown leather strap. And so that was my dress watch. That was the watch that I would wear whenever I went to church or on Sundays. So I had this and the Pebble smartwatch for my two watches. And then for some reason I started searching on YouTube to find, like, thinking maybe I'll get another watch. Started finding these, Urban Gentry and other channels, and getting into that. And that's really what sort of got me down the rabbit hole. I started, I think, with going on kind of like a Chinese watch kick. So this is actually before AliExpress got big. GearBest was another site that's direct from China. I ordered like a bunch of like $10, $20 watches from GearBest that I thought were kind of cool looking, all quartz watches. But yeah, it was like, that was kind of the gateway. It was these cheap watches like this.
Yeah.
Hi, Michael. Good to see you. Glad you made it.
Yeah. This is probably the most blingy I can handle. And this is
there you go. The Hex Mariner.
Hex Mariner. It's got that gold gilting on it.
Yeah, no, that's a cool one.
Yeah, and if there was any gold on that bracelet, it would have been a no-go. And
yeah.
I just want I don't mind the gilting around the dial, because that's where you're looking. But if it's around the bracelet, it's like, that's not the point of wearing the watch. So that's
I like a gold gilt dial. Like I have a Seiko, Dress KX. That's the black dial, but with the gilted hands and markers. And a little touch of gold I think is cool. I don't mind a gold case. I think a gold case with a leather band is nice. I don't. It's more, I don't like the idea of the gold plating rubbing off. That kind of scares me. But I can't afford a solid gold case, so it's not happening. But I like the look.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for height, for me, the tallest one I have is the Citizen one. Let me see if I'll pull that one up here too. Oh, here it's right here. This one.
Okay. Yeah, Citizen makes some tall watches. I'm not sure why they do that. Like they're quartz, so it could be slimmer, but I think they intentionally make it that size for some reason.
Yeah, and this is one of those true dive watches with the real dive depth and some of that technology in there. Which I'm going to take it to this mountain lake that we have nearby here. I'm going to test it out and see how far down. And my ears will pop and push me back to the surface before this thing does. So But this one I think is like 15 plus millimeters.
Okay, that's pretty tall. Yeah,
and it's tall, and I think that's kind of my limit. And like you said, like if I'm not wearing anything with sleeves, not an issue. But it's a heavy watch too. The taller it gets, especially if it's metal,
right?
It just gets to be really top heavy. So I end up wearing it tighter, and I'm not a huge fan of wearing something super tight because it just everything feels like it's cutting into my skin a little bit. So, but yeah, Sea Stern.
Yeah, I've been seeing some interesting stuff from there. Which one did you get, Michael? This is one of the homages from one of the more popular ones, or is Sea Stern doing the original ones yet? Or are they kind of sticking to the homage category?
Yeah, I haven't gotten into Sea Stern. Steel Dive has kind of been my
with the Alley brands. There's always a new one coming up. It's kind of always trying to figure out what the next one is. But Sea Stern, I've seen a lot of those pop up. They seem like they make some really high quality ones.
Yeah. So one more question kind of on that, like, what do you choose? Like, is it form, function, both? Do you lean more to function for something, lean more to form? Do you have anything?
Yeah.
Dave, do you have anything that you would get that would be kind of out there? Like if you had the money, is there kind of a, this one's a little different in design? Like, was it Richard Mills or Miles?
No. Yeah. If I had the money, I wouldn't go with something like that. I mean, no, it's just, I wouldn't go with any of those kind of out there ones. I could see maybe like a nice skeletonized watch. Like I really like the Oris Big Crown Pro Pilot. Was it the X one that came out? This is a skeletonized one that they did. That one I think is really cool. I think a well done skeletonized watch I might go for, but like the Pro Pilot, the case and the bracelet and everything's more restrained. It's just the dial's got the open case work, so you can see all the inner works. But I wouldn't go much more than that. Let me show you. So this is let me pop one up. This is one I just bought. Okay. That's kind of out there.
All right.
Let me put this one up. So this is a Glycine Airman. Oh, this is a video. Look, I can do that.
Nice. Yeah, it's going.
This. Yeah.
Nice. Michael's got a 36. Cool. Green.
Yeah. Dot. So this one, I've wanted a Glycine Airman for a long time, and this one was on sale from Ashford. So I just sold a bunch of watches, so I kind of picked this one up instead. And the dial, it looks yellow in this, but the dial is actually kind of this weird pale orange, which it's really hard to film on camera. I got to figure out how to do that because any of that. But so this one, it's kind of an odd color. I really like the style and the function. It's got the 3 GMT thing going, so you get the bezel. You can move that around. But yeah, as far as like, I need to have something that's both form and function. If it only looks cool and it doesn't actually, like, if you can't read it, or if it doesn't have a date, for instance, like I will not wear a watch that doesn't have a date complication.
Yeah.
I have a couple. I mean, I do wear them sometimes, but every time I do, I'm a little bit annoyed because I always forget. Like, I think I use the date on a watch more than I look at the time. Like, really? I want to see. I more often forget the date, and I'm concerned about what the date is than what time it is at the moment. So I really need to have a date on mine. So yes, that's one thing. Because I think that I really like the way that no date watches look. I like the symmetry. I like not having that date window interrupting things. Mm-hmm. From a visual standpoint, I think it's a really clean, classic look. But just functionally, I really want to have the date on there. So I think, and I think a watch that is functional, to me, that is kind of aesthetically pleasing. Like that, there's something about that. But you can take it too far. Like I think Casio watches are pretty ugly,
Yeah.
but I love them. Like they're the most fun. It's like they take the functional thing to the max, and they're so ugly that they lean into kind of nostalgia, and they have their own charm to them, and they're fun to wear. But I don't think they look good. I don't think that's why I like Casio watches. I like them because they're functional, because they're rugged, because they're inexpensive. And I think the look has a weird charm to it that is appealing, but I don't think it's like a good, like you would just evaluate that from a look standpoint and be like, oh, this is a very beautiful watch,
Right.
So I like watches that can kind of combine that. I think other than the dial color here, I think this Glycine Airman kind of walks that line pretty well.
I really
dial
like
color,
that.
I'm still on the fence on.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really like it.
Does that bezel rotate?
It does. So the Airman, the history behind it was one of the first, if not the first, kind of multi-time zone watches designed for pilots. And the way they originally did it, this is before they had GMT movements. They had a standard 3-hand watch, but it was a 24-hour watch. So the hour hand would rotate around the dial once every 24 hours instead of 12 hours.
Right.
And then you'd have the bezel, which is a friction bezel, so it rotates freely.
Okay.
Actually, I've got it here. Here, if you want to pop me up on the big screen, I can give a little demonstration.
Go right on.
So if you look at this, let's get this in the middle here. As you can see, it's got 2 crowns.
Right.
So this bottom crown is a bezel lock. So you unscrew that, and then you can freely rotate that.
Oh, so there's a clamp that goes over the bezel, right?
Yeah, and then that locks it down.
Right.
And then once it's locked, it doesn't go anywhere. So it's completely free floating when it's unlocked. It's a smooth action, but there's nothing going to bump it. It's going to be stuck there.
Right.
So that was how they originally. That was how that GMT function worked. Was, let me get back to that. You would have you'd have the dial would be reading 24-hour time. So the hour hand would always be pointing to 24-hour time, not 12-hour time. And then the bezel, you would just line that up to your second time zone. And that was kind of the original multi-time zone watch, like back when pilots first started needing that. And then I think, Rolex came out with the, GMT Master around that time or shortly after, where they had the third hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you mentioned the Casio, the G-Shocks. I think the only one I can actually tolerate is the square.
Yeah.
And to me, the other G-Shocks are so chunky.
Yeah, a lot of them are kind of out there with this.
And the square is it's so small and compact, and it does all those things. But and then I look at like the triple sensor. It's not a G-Shock, but at the same time, I've had those for decades, and I don't know that there's anything that I've done to that triple sensor watch that a G-Shock would have protected it more. I don't know that you get a value out of it. And I'm kind of not a huge G-Shock fan for that reason. I think it's a little engineered, unless you're in law enforcement or the military or real serious construction work.
Right.
I just don't think you're going to bang your watch around.
You're never gonna use it. It's the same thing as having 200 meters of water resistance, right? No one's gonna dive. Okay, there are scuba divers out there. I'm never gonna go deeper than 10 11 feet. Ever. Okay. I've never been. I think the deepest I've gone snorkeling, I probably went 15 feet deep once in my entire life. And now I don't snorkel very much. So any water resistance over like 100 meters is completely useless to me. I will never use that function, but I still appreciate it. And I think it's the exact same thing with the G-Shocks. It's like that over engineering, that thought that this thing can take anything, that there's nothing I can do to break this watch. Practically speaking, you don't need it, but it's cool. And that's what 90% of watch collecting is, things like that, where so this watch, they used the Speedmaster on the moon. I'm not going to go to the moon. I mean, but it's still an awesome watch, and I'd love to have it, and I'd be great to wear it.
Right. Yeah, I sat with you on that one, and I think we got to have this picture up here one more time.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah, we want to be like Arnie, you know. Go
this is
kill
what
the
it's all
predator with this watch, right?
about. Right. Yeah. That was the deal. It was like, you're really gonna, and that, I think that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm not sure I would utilize that watch. I like the anti-digi piece to this, but I don't know. It's just too big. It's just too big. Yeah. All right, Dave. We have hit the 1 hour time frame. You're in the morning out there, right?
Yeah. Yes, it's 10:30 a.m. here, and yeah, I've got to take a bunch of trash to the dump today. So that's my to-do list. Today's my day off. So
You got to go to the dump.
Yeah.
All right. I won't ask that. I won't say that any differently.
Yeah. So I got to pick out a good watch to wear as I'm going to the dump today.
All right.
Figure out it'll probably be a Casio.
Thank you, Sir Dave, Mr. The Knight of Just the Watch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we could do this.
Yeah.
And thank you guys, everybody who stopped by and watched. Hope you guys had a good time.
Absolutely. Thanks for the comments and for the folks that watched. And I don't know, Dave, this is my first one. Does this get posted on YouTube so people can watch this later?
Yeah. So YouTube will automatically post it to your channel. You can go into the, your back end studio and remove it if you want, but otherwise normally it'll just show up in your list of videos.
I think you did a good job. I'll keep it.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right. All right, Dave, you take care. Everybody that's online, thank you for being here. I'd love to do it again sometime. There'll be other video live streams. My second oldest son wants to do one. He wants to do something.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. He wants to get him on there. This idea of, Dad, you got too many watches. I just want a few. I'm like, yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Help him put together a small collection.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll probably do something like that here soon. He's coming out to Montana in August. And so we'll have something like that come up. But anything else coming up for you, Dave, before we go? Anything people should look forward to?
Yeah, on the channel, look forward to me not posting too frequently over the next month or two because we got a busy summer schedule with work and church planting ministry stuff out here in Japan. So July I'll be barely scraping by getting some videos up, and then hopefully August I'll get back in the swing of things. But I've got normal schedule, reviews and stuff, all that.
Yeah, my reviews are not going to be as much on watches as much as like things. So my future schedule is going to be a little different as far as what I'm doing. So, but I appreciate it, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a lot of fun.
You take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. We'll see you guys all later.